So, Overwatch, talk of the FPS town at the moment. There's a ton of hype around it, but not much information. The last big round of Overwatch videos were made back in March when all us YouTubers had played the game for about 3 hours, and that was a really great way for us to get some early impressions of the game and make sure it wasn't all just hype. But I mean, if you ask someone to give you a review of TF2 after only a couple of hours in game, or pretty much any game they've only played for a couple of hours, they'd have no idea what they're really talking about. But since then, a lot has changed. We've been given gameplay trailers for each hero, and I've had a ton more opportunities to go play the game, most recently when I went to visit the Overwatch offices during E3. At this stage, I've got about 20 hours in the game, and while there's still a lot that I don't know, with that extra time I've really started to realize a lot of depth and complexity in Overwatch, which makes it so special. So in this video, I'm not going to explain the game, I'm not going to talk about specifics, I'm not going to tell you how many noughts at sea level each of the heroes move. There are a ton of videos out there that do that already. Instead, I'm going to talk about what makes the game so special, what kind of unique experiences I've drawn from the game, what makes me so excited for it, and also a couple of reservations I still have. Then, if there's any specific questions you guys have left, I'm going to do a stream about 12 hours after this video goes live, in which I'm just going to take questions from chat and basically answer anything you want to know about Overwatch. The most defining element of Overwatch is definitely its heroes. In its current state, the game has 15 of them, with a new one just being announced today. During PAX East, I saw a ton of people talking about how OP Bastion was. He'd set up in this turret mode and absolutely mow down even the tankiest heroes in front of him, and after my first few games, I thought he was pretty broken as well. But over the next couple of months where I've gotten the opportunity to play the game more and more and discover all Bastion's strengths and weaknesses, I now kind of see him as one of the easiest heroes to beat. While I originally saw him as this unstoppable robot of death that would mow down anyone in front of him, now I kind of realized that to beat him, all you have to do is flank behind and shoot him in the back. So now, whenever I see a Bastion on the enemy team, I simply go Tracer or Reaper or any one of the ton of mobility heroes out there and just use them to get behind. Another really fun way to take him out is to go someone like Reinhardt and just charge straight at him, because his lack of mobility makes him a pretty easy target, and 90% of the time is a free kill. The same was true for Tracer, because while I was using her to top score and stomp almost every single game at PAX East, as soon as I tried her against the developers, I got absolutely destroyed. They'd use McCree stuns to lock me in place, or massive burst damage to take me out before I had a chance to backtrack, and at an even crazier level, even predict where I was going to reappear after using my backtrack ability, which you can even actually see happen in the Widowmaker gameplay. These diverse hero traits mean that you have to not only think about how to beat your enemy, but also about how to protect against your own hero's weaknesses. Whenever I saw a developer play Bastion, they'd almost always make sure they set up on a ledge or in a corner, making it much harder for people to flank behind and shoot them in the back. This was true for pretty much every Overwatch hero, and that great dynamic of planning out how best to use your abilities to outplay your enemy was absolutely awesome, and that feeling you get after beating an enemy hero was fantastic, because you knew you not only out-aimed, but also out-strategized your opponent. All this character diversity means there really is a hero to suit every person and every playstyle. For people like me that love mobility, Tracer's blink is like rocket jumping on steroids. For the more precise sniper players, Widowmaker is pretty devastating at long ranges, and if you prefer to be a little bit more mobile, then McCree lets you run around and get some close range headshots. Or if you prefer to just hit people in the head with a hammer, then go play some Reinhardt. I was also a big fan of the new hero that Blizzard announced today. I got the chance to play him last month, and Soldier 76 is probably the most traditional FPS character in the game. He's got a sprint ability and a machine gun as his primary, and I think he's going to be great for bringing in players from more traditional FPS games like Counter-Strike and Call of Duty, who aren't necessarily used to a shooter where all the heroes have got these crazy abilities. In my most recent playtest, I actually got to join in on a match with all the developers, and that's where I saw something that really impressed me more than anything else: teamwork. In TF2, some of the coolest moments are when you actually coordinate together with your team to push an objective, talking with your team spy to sap a sentry right before you jump around the corner, or even something as simple as pushing with Uber. Working together to get things done has always been the best part of multiplayer games, but few games actually succeed in encouraging teamwork like TF2 does, until Overwatch. In all the earlier tests I did, there was pretty much no teamwork because we're all beginners, we're all noobs, no one had any idea what they were doing other than that they should probably click on the bad guys. But sitting there playing with the dev team, there was just this constant back and forward communication to coordinate team pushes and most importantly to coordinate abilities. Now this is the kind of thing that would be pretty familiar to MOBA players, but it's never really been done that well in an FPS setting before. Overwatch nails it. There's this one standout moment that you might have seen in my E3 vlog. Jeff Kaplan was playing Hanzo, he was coordinating with our team Zaya, and they combined their ultimates together to create this ultimate team wipe effect, where she pulled them all into a black hole, he dropped a dragon on top of it, every single person died, and then we hopped onto the point to win the game. And that really showed me the kind of potential for teamwork and this epic ability combination that exists. It's that interplay that happens between the heroes that's gonna make Overwatch so special, and it exists between each and every hero. You can throw a time bomb into the black hole instead of a dragon, you can build a sentry on the cart and then protect it with Winston's shield, you can use shields and armor to buff your team's Tracer until she's got more HP than even the tankiest heroes. There's just an infinite number of ability combinations and an infinite number of ways to outplay your enemies, and that is what excites me more than anything else. I always knew that that was the underlying idea behind the game, but it wasn't until I saw the developers really talking and communicating with each other that I realized just how awesome it was going to be. It's this kind of hero interplay, which is one reason I actually like the ability to change heroes mid-game, because it lets you adapt your team lineup to the enemies, try out new strats in the middle of a round, and just generally keeps both teams on their toes, because they got to constantly adapt throughout the game depending on what your enemy's strategy is. But I mean, the game's still in alpha, and there are a lot of things that I'm hoping are going to change before it's released. One big problem I seem to have when I was playing is that there is a lot of visual noise. I mean, Blizzard always makes these really beautiful games, and I think looking at Overwatch you can tell that every single thing, from how the weapons function, their individual animations and particle effects on every gun, to just the overall art style is absolutely beautiful, but it almost seems like at certain points they're trying a bit too hard to show how beautiful everything can be, because as soon as you start to throw a few ultimates into a pot and mix them all together, it can become pretty blinding and pretty visually noisy and make it quite hard to keep track of what's going on in the fight. I mean, even Mercy's healing HUD is literally smack bang in the middle of the screen, which can kind of make it hard to keep track of who I'm healing and what's going on in general. But I mean, that's an issue that Blizzard's aware of. They've already talked about toning down the visuals around Hanzo's sonar arrow, and I'm sure it's something that is eventually gonna get fixed, especially if there's a bit of widespread concern about it. Another thing I'd love to see is a little bit more feedback when I shoot at enemies. I mean, right now there are hit indicators on the screen, but there's no real hit sound, and that's something that I really like about TF2, because if I shoot a heavy in the head with a fully charged shot, I get this massive gong sound, and I can really feel the damage that I've just dealt to him. But in Overwatch you don't have anything like that, and a lot of the time when I headshot someone or shoot them with Tracer's machine guns, I just don't really feel like I'm hurting them, and I'd really love to see some sort of hit sound included. Not necessarily something as kind of crazy as TF2 has, I don't really think that would fit the Overwatch style, but maybe something a little bit more subtle, like what they get in Call of Duty with those kind of little ka-thunk sounds. I know I am actually saying that there is an element of Call of Duty that I quite like, and I'd like to see that in Overwatch. Get over it! So, either way, moving on, one of the big complaints that everyone seemed to be worried about was FOV, and a lot of people complained about how low it was set and the lack of a slider. I personally didn't find it at all nauseating, and I'm normally pretty FOV sensitive, but either way, I think I'm allowed to say that yes, they have increased the FOV in the most recent build by quite a bit. I'm not sure if there is a slider, but yes, it has been increased, because shockingly, the dev team is actually listening to community feedback, and every time I've met them, I've left with the impression that no, they're not kind of elitist. They don't have this mentality that they know everything and they know what's best and you stupid community people have no idea what you're talking about, this is our game, but they're just really excited to get feedback from the community on what they should change, and at the end of the day, they love this game, and they just want Overwatch to be the best game that it can be. So guys, these are my Overwatch impressions. This is why I'm hyped for the game and why I think you'll love it as well. If you've got any specific questions about how heroes work or my opinion on certain parts of the game, I'm going to be running a stream 10 hours after this video goes live, in which I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have. But for now guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you legends in the next one. Bye bye.